to Referral Mastery session 12. Before we get into today's content, let's have a look at the apple tree and see where we've been so far. So we've talked about organizing your database, which you've done. You've phoned through, you've primed all your advocates. You've also got a B list sitting behind that that's now getting a monthly newsletter, which is the same as the item of value that gets mailed as a hard copy every month to the advocates. We've got some other written communication tools we've talked about. Fundamental to that is handwritten notes. So items of value and handwritten notes are the two most important written communication tools that you're going to be sending consistently. And then we've spoken about some personal contact techniques like phone calls and how often you need to make phone calls, and face-to-face contact, particularly Pop-Bys. And then as part of our personal contact discussions, we've also spoken about 5 different dialogues or scripts that I've taught you that are fundamental to working by referral. Now, all of this works together in a single holistic system with a cycle of communication with your advocates that I am going to bring together for you now in our last few sessions. But we've got a couple more pieces of the puzzle to put in place, and today we're going to talk about 3 more personal contact strategies. We're going to talk about client parties, we're going to talk about super advocate lunches, and we're going to talk about business-to-business meetings. Now, one of these is core to the referral system. That is client parties. The other 2, super advocate lunches and business-to-business meetings, are add-ons. I do not suggest you bite off these 2 when you first implement the referral system. You'll remember I said to you at the beginning of this whole course, I recommend you watch this course every 3 months. Obviously, you don't have to do it in 2-week increments at that point. You can just watch the whole course. Take a day and watch it. And I recommend you do that every 3 months. And maybe you are watching this course now for a second or third or fourth time, and maybe you've got a little bit more space. Your normal cycle of referral system is working, and you've got some space to do some other stuff that will generate more leads. Well, here are 2 more fantastic ideas for you. Potentially, you can start looking who your super advocates are and who potential business-to-business or allied service providers are. Okay, so that's today's session. We are going to wrap up the core system with the discussion on client parties and then some next level activities which you might do in the future. So let's talk about client parties. One of the best ways to create critical mass in your database is to host a client appreciation party. What is critical mass? That's that phenomenon where you don't do an internet search, you Google something. You don't vacuum a floor, you Hoover it. Where a certain service provider within a broader industry gets associated with the whole industry. And we don't call this thing by its generic name anymore, we just call it by that brand name. And there are many examples of companies that have attained the gold standard of marketing when you achieve critical mass. Well, that's what we're trying to do with our referral system. You're trying to get critical mass with your 100 to 300 advocates so that they're at a dinner party, they hear the word real estate, house, home, buy, sell, and they immediately, involuntarily think of you. Now, one of the best ways to get yourself to critical mass with your database is to host client parties. Client parties are a very strange phenomenon, and I cannot really explain to you why they work so well. But all we know is that they do. I've got some theory. So I do think if you can create community where people are building relationships with each other and enjoying each other's company, but you are the one who brought them together, even though you're not maybe involved with many of those discussions, and some of those people may form relationships outside of the client party, or they may recognize each other from oh, our kids are at school together, I didn't know that you were a client of Stephen's. Well, even when they see each other outside of the client party and their relationships grow, somehow they still see you as the sort of central point around which the community is revolving. There's something to that of being the instigator of a community that brings you top of mind. The other thing about client parties is that they bring people together physically within a warm, social, collaborative, joyful environment. Again, this is something that I think we're more attuned to now, having come through COVID, where we were all locked down, we were isolated, and we've come out of that, and now online meetings are so much more a part of our daily life. I mean, how many Zoom sessions or Google meetings have you attended in the last month? My guess is quite a few. It's now a sort of natural part of our lives, and we can default, in fact, now in our world, to meeting online as opposed to getting together physically. And what companies are finding, and what I've found within my own EXP team, is that if you make the effort to actually get people out of their home offices, out from behind their computers and their cameras, and get them physically together, there is a strange, wonderful thing that happens when human beings gather together physically. I can't do any better. It's a very difficult thing to describe, but you will experience this yourself. If you make the effort to get people together physically, you will see that there's an energy in the room, a warmth in the room that you just don't get on an online meeting. Okay, so client parties to me are an incredibly important part of your referral system. Here are some ideas for you. Host a private art exhibition or art showing. Host a cocktail event with a high-profile speaker. Rent a venue with a big screen for a major sporting event. People love going to watch a big sporting event on a big screen with other people. Have a Valentine's Day banquet with a Q&A game for couples. I love games. I remember one of the things that we've done with our clients is we had a Monopoly party, obviously property theme. We went and bought 6 or 7 Monopoly sets, and then we got a whole bunch of our clients and we put them in teams. So there were probably, I don't know, 5, 6 people at a Monopoly board, and they were scattered all around our offices. And we had an unbelievable few hours. It was so much fun. We had prizes at the end for the people who'd won. So maybe that's something you'd like to do, a Monopoly party. Host a games night, host a charitable event, have a fancy dress dinner party at your home. You can obviously do seasonal events. I've just attended Andre and Lydia Forster's. Those are 2 very successful agents in my team in the northern suburbs of Cape Town. They did a Christmas party the other day, and it was wonderful to be there and meet all of those people. Rent a movie theater for your own midweek movie premiere. Dinner parties is always a good idea. You can select 10 people and do an intimate dinner party with an anchor guest. So if you know someone who knows someone who is a little bit of a celebrity, or maybe someone who's traveled somewhere interesting, bring them in as an anchor guest and get them to tell their story. Organize a wine tasting or a whiskey tasting or a craft beer tasting, etc. You can get creative. There's endless ideas for client parties. So what is the goal? Well, the goal is to host 2 client parties per year. You should definitely do one at the end of the year for Christmas, I think, and then at some stage at another time in the year, do one other party which you come up with an idea for. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about on the client parties is a very important moment at the client party where you are going to give a speech. Don't be nervous. I'm going to give you the script for the speech. It's literally 1 minute. This is what I want you to say at the client party. At some point, you're going to clinkle the glass, your wine glass with your knife. Ding, 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 ding. Sorry, everyone, can I have your attention? This is what you're going to say. You can even have it printed out and you can read it to the crowd. You know, it's not wrong to take notes if you're going to give a little speech. People don't mind that. So you can have it printed out. Here's the speech. I call this the "As You All Know" speech. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. What is tonight all about? Well, as you all know, I build my business predominantly by referral. I try to really look after my relationships. I try to keep in touch with people. I try to add value to people's lives. And I try always to give my clients the very best service. And if you are here today, it means that you are one of those special people who do support me. And many of you have given me referrals which have led to new clients and new relationships for me. And so today is just a small way for me to say thank you to you for that and to bring a group of really good people together. Every time a friend or a client refers me to someone that they know, I consider it an honor and a responsibility. And that's why I am deeply committed to taking very good care of the people that you refer to me. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your referrals, for supporting my business, and I hope that you have a great time tonight. You can see how powerful that little speech is. remember I've spoken to you previously in the course about reinforcing the right language, that we want to be using the word referral, support, loyalty. We want to continually be using those words in our language to our clients because it creates critical mass. Remember, the client party is to create critical mass in people's minds. The other thing that this does is it reminds people to be referring you. The other thing it does is that it makes people feel a bit scam or a scam, that's an Afrikaans word. It makes them feel a little bit embarrassed if they haven't given you a referral, because you've just said, well, many of you here tonight have given me referrals. I want to thank you. And someone's standing there that night and they haven't given you one recently. They think, oh man, I need to do that. And it reinforces to your advocates how much you value referrals. You know, one of the things that is so strange is that most people out there do not understand how important referrals are to you. Often a friend or a family member will know someone who's thinking of buying or selling the home and they won't tell you. Have you had that experience? Maybe they've even done a deal with another agent and then they were surprised when you were upset. It's our responsibility to make sure that the important people in our lives understand how important referrals are to us. And this little speech reinforces that. They come out of that thinking, wow, Stephen really does take referrals really seriously. So I challenge you, begin planning your next client party and on the night, give that speech. So let's fill in the apple tree. On the right-hand side, under the rainfall, the personal contact, it's the very bottom one, number 3, you'll see client parties. And then under dialogues, we still had one dialogue to fill in on the apple tree, and that's this one, the client party speech, or the as you all know speech. So we've got all 6 of the dialogues in place now, and what we're going to do is just add in those 2 missing personal contact strategies as we finish today's session. And I just want to remind you, what I'm now going to teach you with super advocate lunches and business-to-business meetings is not core to the system. You can implement the system without these 2 things, but I think they make a wonderful addition once everything is part of your routine and you're feeling like you've got more space. So let's begin with super advocate lunches. After 12 to 24 months of disciplined implementation of your trusted advisor program, you should be able to identify 10 to 20 advocates who are referring you most of your closed transactions. This is very interesting. When you've been implementing a referral system like this for a couple of years, if you were to say, okay, I want to look at all of my closed transactions over the last 6 months as an example, and then you make a little note next to each of those transactions, where did I get the lead from to that client? And what you might very well find is that 80% of your leads are coming from just 10 or 20 people on your database. We are going to now call these people over time. Obviously, you're not going to have them in the beginning, but it takes time. You're going to call these people your super advocates, and we are going to give these 10 to 20 people far more attention than our other advocates. These are going to be like the VIPs, the ultra VIPs of our business. I forget the number now, but I remember an estate agent telling me that he had one person on his database, and this guy was giving him, I'm going to get the number wrong, but it was something like 10 or 15 closed transactions every year. It may have even been more than that. But even if it was just 10 closed transactions per year from one person on your database, so that's a pretty valuable person. You work out what you make on your average transaction. Okay, so what are we going to do with our super advocates? What I want you to do is set up a separate database for those super advocates and reward them with your time. Now, I'm going to give you a little strategy to use with them, but you're going to spend more time with these people than you do with anybody else in your database. In other words, you are going to seek to have a meal with them once a quarter. And that's what we're going to get to next. What's the goal? Visit every super advocate at least every quarter. That's every 3 months. Lunch with them is good, but optional. Be sure to listen for something emotional that they want or need. This is simple. I say simple. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's simple to understand. This is a people skill. When you are spending time with your super advocates, this is the kind of thing you should do with your husband or your wife and your children. It's a people skill. You listen when they're talking about something emotional. When you hear it, you'll know it. I'll give you an example. I remember I was having lunch with the head of a huge financial services company in South Africa. I had met him through a friend. He's a very senior man in business in our country. And I was having lunch with him, and he was telling me that his son had recently gone to Washington in the States. And I had recently come back from Washington, and this guy who I was talking to, his name's Peter. Peter was saying he just hoped that his son was mature enough at his young age to make the most of his trip in Washington. Now, when I heard that, I knew, man, there's some emotion there. This guy's dad is so proud that he's over there, but he really wants him to make the most of it, and he's worried that he's not going to. So what did I do? When I got back to the office, I got onto my computer and I did a Google search for the Gettysburg Address and Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural speech that he gave when he took up his second term of office as president. Now, why did I Google those? Because when I was in Washington, I went out one night and I walked the streets of Washington. I got to the Lincoln Memorial, where Abraham Lincoln is sitting on a chair with his legs folded. You'll recognize it if you see it. And if you go up the stairs to the Lincoln Memorial, on the right-hand side of the little memorial, carved into the wall, is the Gettysburg Address, which is one of Abraham Lincoln's most famous speeches. And on the other wall is his second inaugural speech. They are amazing. Amazing, especially if you appreciate history and language and leadership and influence. They just stir the heart of those of us who are bent towards leadership. So what I did was I printed out these two speeches, I put them in a handwritten note, and I posted them to Peter. And the little note just said, "Hey Pete, it was great having lunch with you the other day. Make sure your son gets to the Lincoln Memorial and spends time reading these two speeches. All the best, Stephen." And I posted it off to him. What does that do? That illustrates to Peter Doyle that I was listening to him, that I'm listening to him, and I care for him, and I care for his family, and that what's important to him is important to me. That is a very powerful, and one of the things that you're going to learn about this little skill is that it does not have to cost you a lot of money. How much did that cost me? 2 pieces of paper, a handwritten note, and a stamp. But it demonstrated such incredible care for Mr. Doyle. Okay, so follow up. After your meeting, send them a personal note together with a gift that addresses their want or need. In the case of my story, the little gift was just the 2 printed speeches. It could be a gift of some other sort. Maybe someone has said, oh, they would so love to watch the Springboks play rugby against New Zealand and they've never got to see a live test match. Well, maybe you go and buy 2 test match tickets for the next test match and you send them the tickets. You know, how much is that going to cost you? If somebody is referring you 4, 5, 6, 7 closed transactions every year, you should very well be able to take a portion of that profit and invest it back into the relationship. Okay, you get the idea with super advocates. So I want you to fill that in on your apple tree. That's 2B under the rainfall there. Super advocate lunches. And then we're going to finish today's session talking about business-to-business meetings. So one of the most overlooked and most powerful strategies for getting more referrals is to proactively build relationships with allied service providers in order to support each other's businesses. Support each other's businesses. So let me just give you a definition of an allied service provider. An allied service provider is simply another business person not in competition with you, whose products or services are also used by your ideal clients. So these are business owners that provide a service or a product that is allied to your service. So in your case, as an estate agent, you are servicing the owners of properties, buyers and sellers or renters of homes. Now, who else provides services to property owners or to people who are buying and selling or renting property? That's the question. By working together and promoting each other, both parties can benefit for years to come. Does that not just make sense that if you've got another business owner whom you do trust and they trust you, that you would refer each other's clients to each other? Does that not just make sense to you? Well, this is a very powerful strategy. So here are some examples of other allied service providers to the real estate industry. Other real estate agents. Don't overlook that. I think too often real estate agents view each other as their enemy. If you can build strong relationships with very good, high-producing agents around the country, and if I can just give a shameless plug to EXP, I've got to say I've worked with many real estate companies through my life as a real estate trainer. I have never seen a culture as good as EXP Realty's when it comes to agents collaborating with each other, sharing listings with each other, sharing clients with each other, opening properties to each other's buyers. It is a wonderful, wonderful culture. Okay, why not put some of those agents on your database and begin keeping in touch with them? Then mortgage lenders, or bond originators as we would call them, insurance salespeople, garden maintenance people, plumbers, roofers, handymen, interior designers, dog walkers, attorneys, landscapers, financial planners, building contractors, appraisers, home stagers, moving companies, electrical contractors, and on and on and on the list could go. I'm sure you could make an even bigger list than that. So here's the strategy. Using the following questions to help, make a list of at least 5 allied service providers you could potentially work with more closely. Here are some questions to help you. Who do I already know, like, and trust in that industry? So is there a financial advisor, for example, that I do already know, like, and trust? Okay, so potentially that's an allied service provider for you. Here are some more questions. Who do I currently refer business to? Are there service providers like this that you do regularly refer your clients to at the moment? Well, they should be referring clients back to you, which is what the strategy I'm going to teach you will facilitate. Third question, who refers business to me? Maybe there are a couple of allied service providers that do support your business. What are you doing for them to help them get more business? Because what I'm going to teach you now is a way not only for you to get more business from these people, but to get them referring business to each other. Everybody's, the rising tide lifts all boats. That's what this is about. The best way to formalize such relationships is to form a networking group. Now, some of you may be members of BNI. BNI is an international business networking organization, and if you want any proof that the strategy that I'm teaching you here works, just look at what has happened with BNI internationally. It is an incredibly successful organization, and business owners from a multitude of different disciplines benefit from the referrals that are swapped between the members of local chapters. Now, that is what I'm going to suggest you do. If you're not a member of a BNI group, why don't you form a business networking group? It doesn't have to be an official BNI registered group. You can just form your own one. And here's how you do it. Step number 1, take some other business owners out to lunch and use the apple tree diagram to teach them the referral system. And if I could just make the point here, this is an easy thing to do. You don't have to understand the whole of the system I've taught you through Referral Mastery, but I'm pretty sure if you've got any kind of savvy at all, you could take the apple tree diagram, you could sit down with someone and say, here are the basics of working by referral. You've got to have an organized database. You've got to be communicating with that database with a combination of written communication and personal contact. And there are some dialogues that we use, especially this "oh, by the way" dialogue. And then that's enough. Talk to the other business person about their approach to database management and client communication, etc. It'll start a good conversation. So teach them the basics of the referral system. You can phone them up in order to invite them out to lunch and use this dialogue. Hi Ryan, it's Steve Johnston calling. I'm busy doing a course called Referral Mastery, learning a phenomenal system of how to generate referrals. And I've been thinking about your business because I'm sure you will be able to use this technique too. I'd love to share it with you, and I've got a couple of ideas that might benefit both of us. Can you make a time for a coffee with me in the next week or so? Use that script. It's very good, because it will illustrate to them, or will communicate that there's value in this for you. And what you're going to do is you're going to have a few of those set up over a week or two. You're going to have a few of those meetings with different allied service providers. And once you've had those meetings, you're then going to form them into a group where you're going to introduce all of them to each other. Okay, when you are having the lunch initially and you've got your apple tree, I want you to ask what I'm going to call the golden question. What is the golden question? This is one of the most powerful questions you can ever ask another business owner. How can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospect for you? I dare you to do this. Take another business owner out for lunch, teach them in the referral system on the apple tree, and then ask them that question. How can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospect for you? It'll almost seem too good to be true. Who has ever offered to refer people to you? Who has ever asked you that question? How do I know if I can refer someone to you? I mean, how would you feel if someone asked you that? Like, wow, they're going to support me. So you've taken them out for lunch. Then step number 2 is pitch the idea of meeting regularly with some other business owners to support each other's businesses. So you've had the conversation and you're going to say to them, hey, I've had a similar conversation with a few other business owners that I really do know, like, and trust. And I'm thinking of putting together a little group where I introduce you to each other, and let's see if we can start collaborating to all support each other's businesses. How does that sound to you? Right, please complete your apple tree diagram under 2C. You're going to put business to business meetings in there, and we have now completed the personal contact side of the apple tree diagram. Steps toward mastery. What would I like you to do, or what would I encourage you to do over the next 2 weeks? Well, keep up with your items of value. Just make sure that your item of value is going out every month now, and together with that, you're going to send the email to the entire list, including the B's. Number 2, keep up with your phone calls. And on those phone calls, it's, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, if you know anyone thinking of buying or selling their home who would appreciate the level of service I provide, please call me with the details, and I promise to look after anybody you refer to me. Keep up with your Pop-Bys and keep up with your handwritten notes. Now, in a word, what is the referral system? We're in session 12. We've been together for many weeks now. This is what I've taught you: calls, notes, and Pop-Bys. If you ask Brian Buffini to explain his referral system, that's what he's going to tell you. Calls, notes, and Pop-Bys, and it's undergirded, supported by a monthly item of value that goes to everyone. The item of value goes to everyone, and then you've got the cycle: calls, notes, and Pop-Bys. That's the referral system in a nutshell. And that's what I'm now encouraging you to get into the rhythm of implementing. And then lastly, start planning your next client party. So in the next 2 weeks, I want you to think about when you are going to gather your advocates together. Maybe it's an upcoming holiday or whatever. Go through with it, because I promise you it'll be a blessing to you, to your business, and to your advocates. So God bless you. I will see you in our next session, where we talk about how to build a database quickly. So we've finished the core of the system now, the referral system. There are just a couple of other things we need to do in our next session. I want to talk about, what do I do if I don't have a database? Because this is a common question. So I'm going to teach you a bunch of techniques next time, how to build a database quickly, how to add big groups of people onto your database at a time, so you can get to some kind of critical mass of numbers that you can start keeping in touch with. That's session 13, and then in our final session, we're going to bring it all together, and I'm going to show you what your daily, weekly, and monthly goals are. So we're actually going to break it down to simple activity goals in order to implement the whole system that I've taught you. That's where we're going in the last 2 sessions, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.